Good evening and welcome to Paranormal Puff Peeps. And tonight I have a special guest, Ian Hideous. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, so you're more used to the radio waves.
I am. It's people don't normally see me, but they are
That's
tonight.
right. They are tonight. So yeah. So it's a chance for everyone to actually see you and welcome. So
Thank you very much.
you sort of run a show every week on Friday nights?
I do. It's Ghost Stories with Ian Hideous, and it's on Black Country Extra.
And you can also get that on which channels? It's Spotify or
If you go to just put in your Google machine, Black Country Extra on demand, it'll give you a list of all the podcasts and shows that are broadcast on Black Country Extra, which is a sister station of Black Country Radio.
that's brilliant.
And if you just go down the list, you'll see the Ghost Stories show, which is mine.
That's brilliant. So I always start the question with, where was your first encounter? What was your first encounter with the paranormal?
Well, it's an interesting one. I've said this on my show before. Now, I am absolutely fascinated by the supernatural. I always have been. I was a child. If you took me to the fun fair as a child, the first thing I'd do is want to go on the ghost train. If you go to Alton Towers with me now, the first thing I'm doing is dragging you on the haunted house ride.
Okay.
But as much as the supernatural, it fascinates me, it interests me, I've never seen a ghost.
Right.
Try as I might, I've done. Are we allowed to say, I want to mention it even in the question. Are we allowed to talk about Ouija boards and things like that?
Yeah, you go for anything. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So good.
Well, I say I own 2 Ouija boards, but I don't think the battery. I think the batteries must need changing because mine don't work.
Right.
You know, when I was at college many years ago in the 90s, we had me and 2 friends did like a bit of a seance on a sleepover, and we all got ourselves that worked up and stuff, and nothing happened. So as much as I'll delve into it, I'll explore it, I will talk about it all night, I don't know if I'm susceptible.
Okay. So have you actually had any sort of paranormal experience ever?
Right. The only thing that could be put down to paranormal, and I don't know to this day, a few years ago, I went to a hotel in London, and I was going backwards and forwards from the room to the reception to get hot drinks and things like that. And as I came back the one time, there was sort of like an elderly lady figure sort of standing in the one corner. And I literally looked, saw her, then looked away, and then she was gone. But
Wow.
did she just go in a room? But you know, when something doesn't feel right about a situation, almost.
Yeah.
Something feels very, very, very spooky about the situation. And of course, there was, I don't know if you heard it mentioned before, the infamous, do you know Stourbridge very well at all?
I've been through it, that's all. I know
Right.
there is a good location there.
Well, I'm from Stourbridge originally, to be more precise, Wollaston. And in Wollaston, we've got an infamous wood called Gibbet Wood. You know, the name
Yes.
half explains it. And it's one of those things, anyone over 40 that grew up in Stourbridge, especially Wollaston, will tell you about Gibbet Wood. And
Okay.
we were always told when we were children, I've got a younger brother, he's 18 months younger than me. We were always told, play in the woods by all means. It's semi-rural Wollaston is, but don't ever go near Gibbet Wood. And you know what children are like, we don't listen, do we?
No,
So
you've got to go there, haven't you?
oh yes. So the one day, myself, my brother, and a friend of ours, we went down there on our bikes, and we were like, "Go on, you go in." We were like, "Nah, I ain't going in," and stuff like that. And we looked up, and in the trees, because there's all kinds of stories about this place, and in the trees there was like a black shape floating,
Okay.
almost like if I'm being theatrical, maybe like a cloaked figure or something like that.
Okay.
And it was enough to make all 3 of us get on our bikes and go back the other way. And you know, I'm sure we told our parents about it, and I think my dad was like, "Oh, it's probably just a bin bag or something like that."
Yeah.
But it was enough to make us turn and run the other way.
Wow. How old were you then?
How old was I then? Oh, I was at secondary school.
Right, okay.
I'm gonna say about the third year of secondary school. What would that be? About 13, 14?
Yeah, okay. So
Yeah, I'm gonna say around 13, 14.
not sort of age to leg it then. You're kind of
Yeah,
braver then, to be fair, aren't you?
can at times, at times. I think
What you make
w-
out you're
w-
brave then?
I think in terms of the supernatural, the one thing I don't get, and we were talking about this last night actually. I'd have you met Black Country Paranutters yet?
No, no, I've seen them advertised today actually.
Oh, they're
I've
nice
heard of
lads.
them, yeah.
I had Joe and Ricky from Black Country Paranutters on the show last night,
Yeah.
and they were saying there's loads of times where certain investigators have caught something on camera or they've seen something, but then they run away from it.
I don't know
You know,
why.
they don't investigate it. But I'm always of that ilk where if I was lucky enough to see something, I'm gonna go and investigate it. If I see something moving, I'm gonna go and look at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't understand why anyone wouldn't.
Well,
I mean,
that's what we do, isn't it? That like a lot of people here are investigators. A lot of us actually go out week in, week out. Whether we go to the woods to see what's around, or we go on public or private events, and
mhm.
you're after something,
Yeah.
anything, and that's it, isn't it? So running, no. I will scream. I've done that before, but I didn't run. No.
I love some. The weird thing about the supernatural, I think, at times it can make some of the bravest people. I won't say turn and run, but one thing I love to collect is rural and personal ghost stories.
Right, yeah.
I love anything like that. And I used to work in the carpet trade for quite a few years, and I don't know if you are familiar with the carpet trade, but a lot of it was based in Kidderminster, which is a town near Stourbridge.
Oh, now that obviously was dry clear tunnels there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, some of the lads that worked, the factory I worked in was in Hales Owen, but a lot of the lads that worked there, because we've been in the carpet trade, were from Kidderminster.
Right,
And
yeah.
the one lad there, he had a story that actually happened to his brother, and his brother in the local village in the 70s was known as a bit of a rungun, one of those types.
Yeah.
And the one night, he said he used to walk from Kidderminster town centre to, I'm going to say it was, what's Cookley. There's a tiny, tiny little village outside Kidderminster
I know
called
that. I went
Cookley.
camping there, I think.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
I think there's a campsite and things there. So it's a lovely little village.
Former
But between,
USAF Army base.
oh, that's Bewdley. Bewdley's
Um,
got the oil base at the top.
no. It's like, oh, I don't know. It's
Well, that's
like,
just two.
yeah, it could be.
It might be.
This
It
is
might be.
this is to the base. Like you get Jogley tunnels, and then you come in a
Yeah.
straight line from it, and then you've got this campsite, a lovely little village, and it's got a little cell as well, where it's got a tiny cell where they used to lock people up in it.
It must be.
Got a porch and everything, and little golf course thing as well, and a
Yeah,
nice pub.
yeah. It's definitely. Yeah, it's Cookley then.
Yeah,
Ah, I didn't know that. But this lad's brother used to walk from Cookley to Kidderminster town centre of an
right.
evening after he saw his friends, and that was a proper rural. I mean, it's still quite rural to this day, but I think in the 70s it was proper. Before things got built over and things like that.
Yeah,
And he said he was walking from a friend's house back to Kidderminster town centre late at night. And he said he heard something in the bushes. And he was the type of man, had that have been a man, he would have faced them. He would have said, "What you doing?" or something like that.
yeah.
But he said he just had this feeling come over him. And he said he just ran. He just and from that day on, because I say I work with his brother, he said if you ever even mention something as silly as, "Oh, should we watch a horror film around this guy?" No, just shut it down immediately. And
Awesome.
well, that's when that's when you almost know there's something in it
Yeah,
by
that's
someone's
right.
reaction. There was again, I'm going to come back. I will jump from subject to subject. Forgive me,
It's all
but
good.
another person that works at the carpet place, her husband was a bit of a miserable person, and he had a spooky story. Him and some friends, well, I'm going back to like the 50s, perhaps even the 60s now, but they were playing like an abandoned building. They were getting the Ouija board on the go and so on and so forth. And outside this building, as they were doing the Ouija board, they heard what sounded like lightning crashing. You know, like some really loud, you know, unholy, unearthly crash, bang. And so they all ran out. And the way he described it, he said, "Oh, it was old Nick." I think the expression was he used.
Right.
He said there was some figure, like unearthly, really negative figure stood there, you know, and all these little stories. I love collecting. That's one of the things that inspired me to do the show. Is I love hearing people's ghost stories, because we can all Google famous ghost stories. But what I really love, especially if it's like, say if you've had a meal with some friends or something like that, and at the end of the night you ask them, "Oh, has anyone got any ghost stories?" and so on and so forth. And you'll always have someone tell you like the monkey's paw or something famous. But then all of a sudden someone say, "Well, something did happen to me once." You know, and that's when I start rubbing my hands together. That's the sort of story that I love and I want to share.
Yeah, because Carl's got stories. He's got a lot of stories. He's a friend and he just pick things up. So he says, talking about secondary school in 1960, a young girl died at the school. He went, she's still there, and the music teacher has seen her many times.
Ooh.
And it's things like that, isn't it? And like we
Yeah.
had stories at our school. So at my primary school, the games teacher hung himself underneath the stage area. But there are always ghost stories then. And just leaving out as well, as we left school, there's something we called the Witch's Way as well. So why was it called that? You know, and there's all these things what lead to things being named, aren't there?
Yeah. Well, we've got a murder bridge in Stourbridge, which has quite an ominous feel to it to this day.
Wow.
Yeah. In fact, I should have got him to send it me in advance. The producer on my show is a guy called Todd, and he's still got a copy of it on his phone. We had one guest. Do you know? Oh, where does she work? HMV in Merry Hill.
Right.
Becky from HMV, a friend of hers, does some of the ghostly hunting. And there's a little bridge in Stourbridge. Do you know Old Twinford at all? Have you heard of that?
No.
Right. Have you heard of? I'll tell you what. It's not. Well, actually, that's wrong. So I was going to describe something that it's close by, and I've just thought about it in my head, and it's nowhere near. It's nowhere near that. It's like a real old town part of Stourbridge, Old Twinford. You know, it's really, really old. And there's a really old churchyard there, and I'm not sure today if you can walk through the churchyard. But when I was at college, there was a tiny little bridge. And when I say a little bridge, it's the smallest thing, but for whatever reason, it lets no natural light underneath. It's really, really, really pitched. It's you know you wouldn't dare go through there on a night. It's not nice to go through there on a day. But somehow some of Becky's friends, they're out ghost hunting, and they were taking photos around that area, and they took a photo under this bridge. And the producer on my show, he actually has this photo on his phone. And it looked a bit like how do I describe it? Like a blurred, I want to say like a blurred face. But when she proper, I'm gonna have to paraphrase here because I'm not very technically minded. When she highlighted the photo, and you know, when you do like the enhanced, that's a good word to say it. When she enhanced the photo so she could see more through it, it looked like a really angry, contorted, angry face under this bridge. And you're like, you're really making me want to go nowhere near this bridge.
That's fascinating.
It is a fascinating subject.
Yeah, it is.
And I would love. There is nothing I will in that terms. There is nothing I'll say no to. If someone wants to do a séance, if someone wants to go ghost hunting, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
You know, why would you not?
Because people are scared, or people don't want to admit there's something else out there, or something like that.
I think sometimes in their defence, I think people do get defensive over it. But as you say, I think sometimes people just get really scared. Not everyone likes to. No one likes to admit they're scared. It's not a nice thing, but Yeah, I think sometimes it comes across as ridicule from people when people don't get something. It's human nature to ridicule it,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
And like sort of the older people, they just like talk that ghosts didn't exist, stuff like that. So like people are more open now, aren't they?
Oh, definitely,
So,
definitely.
you know, we can talk about this now, but imagine like well, it's most haunted really. What got it more out into the open, isn't it?
hmm
No matter what people think of it, or yeah, it
I,
did have
I,
its benefits.
yeah, I enjoy it for entertainment's purposes, but I think take it with a pinch of salt.
Oh gosh, yeah, definitely, yeah,
I liked it. I liked it's weird. At the time when it was on, I remember Most Haunted coming on the first time round, and I wasn't a fan of it because I just thought a lot of it was fake. But
yeah,
years later, I'd see Derek Acora being interviewed separately, and he came across as he could certainly laugh at himself, and I'll give him that.
yeah. It
You
was
know,
cool. Yeah,
I'll respect anyone that can laugh at themselves because at the end of the day, we've all got to. Because
yeah,
did you ever see that little skit he did? Do you remember the comedy show Bo Selector? It's not everyone's taste, but do you remember it?
yeah. My
There
God,
was the real Derek Acora actually went on Bo Selector with the puppet version of Craig David, but the Craig David.
John Smith,
I'm,
you're
I'm
gentle.
trying to I'm trying to read the messages as they're coming up. How you doing, John?
Yeah, I've got
That
Neil
you-
as well.
Oh, Neil's great.
Yeah,
Paralytic Activities came on my
that's
show.
the one.
Was it one of the? I don't know, it was the second or first show I did this year.
Oh
I've never
wow,
laughed so much doing a show. They are great lads.
brilliant.
They've got
Yeah.
to come. They've got to come back on soon. They're great. But I remember seeing the Craig David on Bo Selector was dressed up as a Ghostbuster,
All
and
right.
he was leading the real Derek Acora around this medieval castle. And whenever Derek Acora was saying about an event that had happened, or where people had seen spooky stuff, Craig David was giving it. Oh, I'd better turn my proton pack on. And Derek Acora, for his merit, he thought it was hilarious. You could just tell.
Yeah.
So I've
It
got
was
much.
a brilliant bloke. Yeah. I interviewed
Yes,
his wife not
definitely.
so long ago.
Oh,
Yeah, about Derek. It's just amazing. And he just lives he lived a normal life.
yeah.
He lived a normal home life. He used to be a footballer, and and
Yes,
then yeah,
did he actually play for Liverpool? Have I got that right?
yeah.
I'm,
Oh, I forget which one. I can't say it.
my,
I'm not sure.
my, bro-
One of them, yeah,
I'm not I'm not a football fan. I
yeah,
wouldn't, to be honest, I wouldn't watch the World Cup if it was in the back garden,
yeah.
and I wouldn't give him the ball back either. So. But my brother loves football. It's not for me. It really isn't.
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, anything spooky, I'm absolutely fascinated by, which was my main inspiration for starting the show. And the show sort of came out of nowhere. And I had experienced public speaking because I'm 44 now, and I've been doing bands since I was 17.
Wow.
So I played all over the country. I've done a few albums and so on and so forth. But in terms, so I knew I could speak to a room. I knew how to speak to people that I didn't know.
Yeah.
But in terms of presenting, I had no training of it, and it came about by accident because in my mid to late 30s, I retired from music for a few years. I had a bit of I wouldn't go as far as say a negative experience, but I thought I was done with it. And during recent events, when people had a lot of time on their hands, so I'm trying to read people's
Yeah,
messages now.
from
Who was at Liverpool?
Liverpool,
But
but I had to quit.
who was at,
You were
someone
right.
knows a lot. Someone knows a lot more about football than I do. During recent events, when people had a lot of time on their hands, I started making music again, just under the name Ian Hideous and
Oh, that's
such.
cool. Yeah.
And a friend of mine, Andy, he's a stormtrooper cosplayer. He's a lovely guy. He knew a
Awesome.
lad. Say again, sorry.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, because I
Thanks.
met some. I did a panto at Christmas and I met some stormtroopers, etc. Quite a
I'm
few
a,
turned up in
say again?
outfits. Brilliant. Quite a few sort of turned up in the outfits. It's brilliant.
Yeah. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I love anything like that. I'd love to do the cosplaying myself, but it's really, really expensive.
It
But
is, yeah, the costumes are amazing.
well, my mate Andy's part of the. I want to. If I get this right, the 501st, which is the UK's #1 Star Wars cosplaying thing.
Oh, wow.
And because I like some of the table. I'm a really boring guy in real life. I like all the tabletop gaming stuff, and my
Yeah,
friend does as well. And I used to go around his house and play quite regular. And when I first went round, he had all these different helmets on his wall, like Darth Vader, a Stormtrooper, a Royal Guard, the Sand People. I'm trying to think of what the TIE Fighter pilot. And I just kept looking at these helmets all night. And eventually, I'm like, "Oh, do they come off the wall, Andy?" And he's like, "Oh," and he's like, "Why do you want to try one on?" And I'm like, "I'm on my feet before he can say it, pulling them
yeah,
off the wall." But he knew a guy called Steve Taylor. Big shout out to Steve Taylor, who does the rock show at Black Country Radio.
right.
And when things became more accessible again in recent times,
Yeah,
my band that I'd formed right at the end of the thing I'm not going to name,
yeah.
we went on Black Country Radio, and
Okay.
I got talking to the DJ there and the owner and stuff like that. And one thing led to another, and I got in contact with them, and they got in contact with me about doing the Supernatural show on there.
That's
And
awesome.
I was like, I'd love to do it. I would, I had a couple of sit down talks with them, which was really great stuff. And they sort of told me how things worked. I put across my ideas and how I would do it. And I did my first show at the end of August last year.
Wow.
And I think it took a while because I'd love to have some of the early guests back on.
Right, yeah.
Because I had no formal training in interviewing or presenting or anything like that. So in the first, I'm sure you found this yourself. I mean, how long
Oh
have you been doing
gosh,
podcasts
yeah.
for a while?
I've been doing it 4 years now.
Oh wow!
But like, oh my gosh, that first show, it's like you start and you're 5 minutes into it and you think, oh my God, how am I going to get through an hour?
Yeah,
And and I actually had about 100 questions written down. And then because it's like semi-dark, I couldn't actually read them. So I was trying to talk to the guests, trying to read them. I thought, oh, and it just went to pot. And yeah, but now I just blag it. It's so good.
there's a beauty in winging your whole show. I have done it myself. Some weeks you just don't want to write any questions. You think, yeah, I'll wing it. But what I'd love to do, because I'm sure you've seen this yourself, I went from the first couple of shows I did, I was essentially asking someone a question directly, and they'd almost give me a direct answer. But
Right.
to fill an hour's show doing that, you need a lot of questions.
You do, yeah.
And I found what works much better now, and this was by trial and error. Just talk to people.
Yeah.
Find out who they are, find out what they like. And I say some of the people that have come on the show have been absolutely great. And as we mentioned before, like Luke, Neil, and John from Paralytic Activities, they're
Yeah.
absolutely great guys. When they turned up wearing horror film T-shirts, I was like, yeah, these guys are going to be great.
So, yeah. Great guy.
I had, do you know Russ from Wednesday Paranormal?
Oh my God, yeah, Russ. I love Wednesbury, yeah.
Did you know Russ?
First time I did show, I used to go out on the Haunted Antiques platform within Facebook. So that's in Hinckley. And that's where I first met Neil and John. Because they went out onto that platform as well. And
Right.
I know Russ and Wednesbury because I went ghost hunting with them about 4 or 5 years ago. So I do meet up with them when I can, and I do their events. So yeah.
Did you know Rusty? Did you know Rusty's doing a show on Black Country Radio?
Yeah, I've seen because I'm his mate. Yeah,
he does. Is it a rap show?
I can't remember.
I have heard it. The guy who produces my show, Todd, is the same guy who produces Rusty's show. So right. I do get, if I'm in the studio after Russ has done it, I do get to hear it sometimes.
That's smart,
but I think I don't think Russ is. Now I've said this, he probably will be. I don't think Russ is on demand yet. Because every so often the web.
John Smith.
That's it.
Yeah.
every so often we've got an on-demand page for all the shows that are on Extra, and every so often they'll update it and they'll renew it. And I'm probably using the wrong words, so I'm just not technically minded.
That's all
But
right.
I would imagine in the next update, Russ's show will go on demand because I think it's going really well. He's a good guy, Russ is.
Oh, it is.
And
They, the whole team, they're just amazing, and
oh yeah,
they've
he
got the
brought
chemistry, and that's what does
oh
it.
definitely. He brought one of his friends in. Do you know Dennis from Wednesday
Yes,
Paranormal?
yeah, I do. Yeah,
He came in with him last time, and he was a great guy. But I've had some wonderful guests. Do you know Conjure Quest?
yeah. Got
Tracy
you
and
mentioned that here's Tracy now, so
oh
yeah,
right, and Andy, Tracy and Andy.
yeah.
They're a
They're
great
both
pair. I like
flashing
those.
at the moment, so yeah.
Oh, thanks. Oh, this is sorry. I'm trying to read it, and it's only small. I missed what.
We're Ian's fellow roadie fans, love a
All
band.
right. When we've been playing some of the HMVs around the country, and
Oh wow,
when we did the one in Telford, which we might not get asked back for because they don't have a sense of humour.
no, don't.
Within the three songs, we are quite loud, but within three songs,
What? I'm
some,
sorry, you abandon your loud.
I
Wow.
know, but I don't think they expected. They expected us because the guy who was. I'm not going to name him because
No.
I nearly said a semi-rude word. Then the guy who was working in there, I didn't care for, but
Yeah.
he was moaning at me after the show, going, "I don't know why you lot had to do it like this." He goes, "We've had some wonderful singer-songwriters here, and look what you lot have done." And I was like, "Well,
Wow.
you booked us, you know what I mean?" But within three songs of our show at Telford Shopping Centre,
Telford's awful, Tracy says.
say again, sorry.
Tracy
Telford's
says Telford's
awful.
awful.
Within three songs, the owners of I'm not going to say what the shop is, but the shop that's opposite HMV, people can work that out in Telford.
Right, okay.
Someone who worked in that shop stomped into HMV and went straight to the counter when we're playing. And I looked at our bass, so I said, I know what they're going to say. And after that song, the manager, who I didn't
Yeah.
care for, came over to us and was like, "Lads, you got to turn right down." So I graciously got the whole audience to shout "boo" at the
Yeah,
shop,
do that.
the shop that had asked us to turn down. But yeah, Andy and Tracy came to that show, the one in Telford, which was really great to see them. I like them. And another guest I've had that's absolutely fantastic. Have you heard of a guy called Jamie Cooper?
No.
He used to do the supernatural tours at Dudley Castle.
Oh,
Like
okay. Right.
he'd take the groups of people around, and he'd tell them the history of it. He's really, really good at history. Jamie is. But the weird thing was, it's the old small world thing. I knew Jamie a little bit in the 90s because he's been involved in live music the same way as I have.
Cool.
And Jamie in the 90s, he probably tell you the dates, I can't tell you the dates off my head, was the singer of an Alice Cooper tribute band, a really successful one around the UK.
Right.
So he to this day he still sings. He's much better singer. I basically scream my lungs out. Jay's a real singer. He's much better singer than that.
What are you in the band then? Do you do
I
singing?
I open my mouth and an awful noise comes out. I do play guitar and I play bass as well, but in this band I sing.
I'd love to be able to do that.
It's
I really
practice.
would.
To be honest, I think there's not many people that can't sing in tune. Don't get me wrong. There's a couple of people who really shouldn't do it, and
Yeah.
you know need to be
I've heard
need to be
people
told. But
flat as anything. Oh dear.
they used to be a guy. I'm not going to say his name 'cause I love him, but he hasn't got a sense of humour. He's one of those types.
Okay.
And he was a brilliant keyboard player. He could do all of the really spooky orchestral noises and stuff like that. But he was insistent he wanted to be like a singer in some gothic horror band. And I was like, no. I was like, don't sing. That's my band, DK87.
Cool. Okay, it's 7.
This guy, he was insistent he wanted to be a singer. and I'll try to be diplomatic. I'll always try and be diplomatic. And I was like, I was like, to quote, as a great man, Alan Partridge once said, "Don't sing; it sounds bad." And and it led, But there's not many. I think if you practice, I think the key with singing is finding your own voice.
Yeah.
I'm a huge. Do you know the band that wear the face paint, Kiss?
Yes. Also.
I'm a huge Kiss fan. I'm a huge Kiss fan.
Yeah.
Kiss are the reason I make music. That was what, as a teenager, made me pick up a guitar as a 14-year-old. That's when I bought a Kiss video. That's why I wanted a guitar for the following Christmas.
Enough the
And
rent.
Oh, Partridge. That made me want a guitar. That's why I do music to this day. That's what's led to the Ghost Radio show. But yet, I'd met this Jamie Cooper years before in musical terms. And years later, I was looking for guests, and someone said, "Oh, Jamie Cooper does the supernatural walks at Dudley Castle." So I reached out to him, and we reconnected like 24 years later after we'd last seen each other. And Jamie's been on the show twice, because what I've been doing is we do supernatural stories, and Jamie's got loads. In fact, if you want, I can put you in touch with Jamie. I'm sure he'd do this.
I'm interested. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, Jamie's got some great stories. I will message you his number.
Yeah,
and he's a great guy
there as well. It's a great location.
Oh, definitely. There's so much activity.
It's a strange place because I didn't actually see any of the zoo. So you go at night, it's all dark. It's right at the top of a hill. You think, where the hell are the animals?
Yeah, they're down on the lower hill, aren't they?
But I can't, even if you go up the tower, you think, where are they? But it was late, so they'll probably asleep somewhere. But it was just you're at a zoo, and it's right in the town centre as well. That's weird as well. I just couldn't get my head how there's a zoo right in the middle of a town centre. It's right there.
I used to go there. So I'm from Stourbridge, but Dudley's literally only up the road from Stourbridge. Yeah. And funny enough, I mentioned ghost trains earlier.
Oh yeah.
That was one of the first places I got taken to as a child that I remember vividly going on the ghost train, and that was what always fascinated me. I was the kid. If I saw anything spooky, I mean, I love comics. I collect comics to this day. But I remember being a kid at my grandparents' house, and there was a comic called Scream, not to be confused with the films of the same name. There was do you remember the English comics like Dan Dare and stuff like that?
Oh god, yeah. Oh my god, yeah.
It was by the same people that did Eagle and Dan Dare and stuff.
Oh wow.
And I remember seeing this advert on television, and there's like thunder and lightning crashing outside the front window, and like monsters walking around. I was like, "Can I have that?" And it comes with a free spider. It's practically paid for itself, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But what I've done as well, because I have an obsession with horror films. I must have, I don't know, well over 1,000, 2,000 DVDs and stuff. Awesome. But what I've done a few times with the show, I've done whole episodes. And if anyone has anything they're fascinated by, get in touch with me. And get in touch with the show, because I will do episodes based. If it's got anything supernatural, be it fiction, be it a real life story, be it something you've heard, be it something you've been told, let's come on and talk about it.
That's cool, right?
You know what I mean?
Your group on Facebook is Ghost Stories.
Ghost Stories with Ian Hideous.
Ghost Stories of Ian Hideous, yeah.
Ghost Stories with Ian Hideous.
Oh, John wants to do one. When are we doing the Video Nasty show, Ian?
Hopefully the end of April, because I'm doing a show with what's his name? I'm not going to give his name away yet. There's a guy coming in at the start of April, and so I do two. I'm on every week on a Friday night, but the same show gets broadcast twice.
Yeah.
So the one I did last night with Joe and Ricky from Black Country Paranutters.
Right.
Will air this coming Friday, and it will air the following Friday. Cool. Then I'm doing another show with another guest, which will be the first show in April. So that'll air for 2 weeks. So hopefully we can cross our fingers that the Video Nasty show will be the second show in April.
That's cool then. Yeah.
And it's about a subject that's, I can't say close to my heart, because that's too strong a term. But it's It is, isn't it? But it's something that fascinates me because I've always been fascinated by horror films. And I was the kid in the video shop. I'd stamp my feet till my parents let me have Candyman or Return the Living Dead or
Oh,
something
yeah.
like that.
God.
And do you know much about the video nasty scandal from the early 80s?
Oh God, I forgot.
Well, basically, it all comes down to certification of films. Like in how do I say it? In the 60s and 70s, if you wanted to see a film, you either had to go to the cinema or you had to hope it would turn up on television.
Yeah.
And if you missed it, tough luck, you didn't get to
Yeah.
see it. But in the 80s, in the early 80s, there was the proper video rental boom.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah,
I nearly got a job for one of them. Blockbusters, yeah. I
oh,
nearly
I used
got a
to,
job for Blockbuster, yeah. I remember now.
my,
Yeah.
my friend Robin used to work in the Blockbusters in Wollaston High Street, and he said
Alright.
he said it was great at first, but then the novelty wore off because people used to come in just to wind him up, and he had a massive. I remember he had a massive hissy fit. 'Cause I shouldn't laugh at this, but there, there used to be a drop box where people could return their films like after they'd watched them late at night if the shop wasn't open. And he said more than one time he'd open it on like a Monday morning and someone had dumped a takeaway in there on top of the
I'm
on
not
top of the film,
surprised. Yeah.
which obviously isn't funny at all. But I think he still remembers it today. I need to message him actually. I meant to call him
Oh
back.
God.
But essentially, when the videos and the horror films started coming out in the early 80s, what we didn't have was certifications, which leads to the pre-certificate videos. So one would think common sense would come into this, but you can't really trust for humans not to have common sense at times, can you?
No.
So like people's grandparents would go and rent a film for their children. And one would think if a film says Bambi on it, it's safe to rent. But if
Yeah.
something says like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you probably know
Yes.
that's not for your grandchildren. But people's argument was that, well, we don't know. We need a way to tell this.
Yeah.
So, and it was an awful scandal because what people don't remember is people lost their businesses, people lost stock, people even did jail time because I think
Wow.
anyone that goes to jail for renting a film that's say 3 minutes longer than and that's what led to there being two versions of a lot of these films. I don't know
Oh,
if you're
yeah, I was aware of that, yeah.
I mean, a famous film from it is like, have you ever heard of a film called The Evil Dead? I'll use that as an
Yes,
example.
yeah.
There are multiple big box. When I say big box, the old ex rental boxes. There are multiple releases of that, and they all have different running. Not all, but a lot of them have different running times due to
Yeah.
how cut the film was.
Yeah, got
Now,
you.
if a video shop owner in the early 80s was renting a copy of that was say 2 minutes longer than the one that had been deemed acceptable, he could go to jail.
Oh my God.
And I think that's the idea of anyone going to jail for renting a
It's
fictional film
yeah.
is ridiculous. But people did,
Wow,
you
I never
know.
realised that at all. No.
Well, there's a funny story that a friend of mine tells. He's a little bit older than I am, so we can remember it much more vividly. The classic, the proper. I'm going to use an Americanism term now. The mom and pop type video
Yeah.
shops. And he says he vividly remembers being in one of them, and there was an old lady in there, like a real little old lady.
Yeah.
And I think she was saying to the person behind the counter, "Oh, I think I'll try a horror tonight." And in her hand, she had a copy of "I Spit on Your Grave." So, I'm sure she was in for a really interesting night that night. And it fascinates me. It fascinates me. It really, really does. So what I've done is for some of my episodes, I've done whole episodes based on certain horror films and
Oh, brilliant.
certain. Do you remember the infamous Ghost Watch of 1992?
Oh, yeah, I've just written a book. It's going to be published soon, and I do actually mention Ghost Watch
Oh, I love Ghost
because
Watch.
we love them, didn't we? You know, they were characters. we knew them. We watched them on TV, and then
Mhm.
you
Well,
know,
that
and that was the thing, wasn't it? I didn't know it was a documentary at the time.
it wasn't a documentary; it's a film.
Yeah,
That's what caught people off guard.
I thought,
Is like,
we didn't have Radio Times or anything.
no, that's it, because the
I thought we
radio
just kind
time.
of watched it, and that was it. And then you think,
Mhm.
well, we didn't realise that. We thought it was real, like a lot of
That's a
people did.
problem. A
Yeah,
lot of people thought it was
yeah.
real because it caused. I think to this day, is it? I think it's. I might be wrong because it may have come off in recent times, but I think it's still on the BBC's blacklist to this day. And when
Right.
you consider there is no swearing, there is no violence, there is no nudity, how can this thing hold such a record number of complaints?
Yeah,
You know, I was annoyed the first time it came out, because again we come back to the video thing. If you didn't see that, I know there was recording things then, but if you didn't see Ghostwatch when it was on the first time, you missed it, because the
yeah,
BBC were in no hurry to show it a second time. And I remember the night it was on. It was Halloween 1992, and I was flicking backwards between ITV and BBC One,
yeah.
because I remember Ghostwatch being on, but
Yeah,
me
nice.
me yes, pipes. Me being me, wanted to watch The Fog, which was on Channel 3.
Oh
Check
gosh,
out Night of the Demon, the cryptid one. Yeah, I've seen Night of the Demon. That has. I'm not going to say it because this is a family show, but a friend of mine, Mark, once said, "Oh, Ian, you've got to watch Night of the Demon. There's a scene where a man has something happen to him," and he told me what it was. John will know what I'm talking about.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm like, Mark, I don't want to watch that.
yeah. Okay.
And he tried to say anyone, if John's seen the film, which I'm sure he has, he'll know exactly what scene I'm talking about. And I was
Everyone will
like,
be
Mark,
checking YouTube now, won't they?
say again, sorry.
Everyone will be checking YouTube now to
Yeah,
find
yeah.
the scene. It.
Oh. But I'd love doing episodes on films. We recently did one on Susan Hill's The Woman in Black,
Right. Yeah.
which I think is arguably the most scariest ghost story ever written,
Hmm.
in my opinion. Have you seen The Woman in Black?
I have, but I'm a bit rubbish at remembering films.
The 1989 one is a work of art, but in my opinion, the Harry Potter one, which was it's he my God.
Hiya,
The,
Irene, and the next comment, you're gonna love it. There you
yeah,
go.
that's the scene I was talking about, John. That's how that's how a friend of mine, Mark, tried to sell the film to me, because you've got to watch it, Ian. A bloke, and I was like, I don't really want to see that. Bless him. In fact, I'm still, I've got him 90% convinced. And John, if obviously John's coming on to do the Video Nasties episode, but the guy who actually encouraged me to watch Night of the Demon may be the other guest on that episode. If I can convince, he's about 90% convinced to do it. I think he's a bit. I can say it on this because he doesn't know I'm on this. So did John. I'm trying to get. I think my friend's a bit nervous about speaking on an episode coming on the air.
Oh, bless him.
So, but he has a far better knowledge of the subject than I do. So
Yeah,
I'll be sat there with a book in front of me or something like that.
that's cool.
But yeah, anyone out there, if you can get in, if you contact Ghost Stories of the Inhidious, get in touch. And it's great fun. We have a full working radio studio, and it's a lot of fun.
Oh,
I'll
brilliant.
say I've got a producer because he's much better at pressing all the buttons than I am. Because Todd's fantastic, he really is. I've looked the other week. Todd wasn't very well the other week, so Lee stepped in and helped out. And I was trying to learn how to do some of the buttons and stuff. I have not got a clue.
I wouldn't be able to. No.
Do you know, like it's like going in the tart. We loved it, pal. Fantastic. They were great guests. Amazing experience.
Going, Tracy says. Yeah.
People are being very nice tonight, aren't they? That's very pretty. You
know what? I will try and get to see you sometime. And what I'll do is try and come and see you and then go off to investigate the castle afterwards.
Yeah.
If I'm
As,
going
as
all that
long
way, because it's like about 1.5 hour drive from here.
as,
So I'm in Nottingham. So
yes,
time I went
because
to Dublin, the late drove. So that was good.
normally we record on a Sunday evening, but if I always know in advance when the guests come in. If I
Yeah.
know in advance, we can always fit it to whatever time works for you. We
Yeah.
can, cause we always book the room in advance, so
Yeah.
we can work it for guests and stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's been some great guests, and hopefully some great stories to share. I'm guessing, do you have supernatural experiences of your own? Are you a believer, Jackie?
Yeah. I do paranormal every weekend. I've
You
got
have to
some
go out and hunt every weekend.
yeah. Go out investigating. I was actually at a public event and somebody threw up the other day. Yeah. So it's just a local hall, and we were just there, and I was the other side of the room, and all of a sudden, like, it's like I've got like a pleurisy condition. So
Oh, what? Sorry.
on my chest, it's like I've got sort of a bronchitis all of a sudden, or something like that, and all my chest felt bunged up, and I had problems breathing.
Whoa.
My voice went as well. It's on video, and my voice
Hmm.
went as well. And then I managed to get the spirit away from me, because they do get quite close to me sometimes. And then that it left me, and then this woman started being started throwing up actually. It's a bit grim.
If you don't mind me asking you, do you think there are some people who, no matter how hard they try, they're just not susceptible to the supernatural?
I think you've got to be open to some degree. Yeah, like if you do, I sort of host public events as well. So
Hmm.
if you get people along and they're just going to sit like this with their arms crossed and,
Yeah.
oh, this is rubbish, or they've been dragged along by their friends, like some people, like I was at the Derby jail one night, and it was somebody's 50th birthday or something. So she got 8 friends with them, and they weren't interested. They just wanted to go for a drink, and that was
Yeah.
that. So, they were just dragged along, and they went for her, and, they just were not interested, and that was that.
I think
And
like a lot of things, if you go into something closed-minded, or if you go into something determined not to enjoy it, you won't get anything out of it.
that's right, yeah. If you go ahead, oh, this is silly, I don't know what I'm doing it, no chance. If you go in and you're a skeptic and you're willing to look around and take in what's around you, that's great. We love skeptics, because if something happens to them, I was hosting at Drakelow Tunnels. There's a big company called Dust Till Dawn, and I actually had a
Hmm.
tryout for them. And with Drakelow, you've got all these tunnels, and then there's a bit where the tunnels kind of cross. So the group was standing within that part, and there's this guy who's a skeptic. So they had him sort of stand a bit down a corridor, and then another person in the other corridor. So you got 4 different people in different directions. So his mates, he couldn't hear us. So his mate said, "Go on, go and hit him." So all of a sudden he started screaming and running towards us because something had actually hit him.
Oh, it's actually touched him.
Yes, and the thing is, like, you can't deny a personal experience like that.
Oh, no, no, no.
And and it's great when skeptics see, because if you don't know, you could think, no, it doesn't exist for whatever reason, whether you were taught it's scary, or you thought it was scary, or that's rubbish, whatever. Then it's only unless you get something really personal,
Hmm.
and then you realise.
One thing I really respect about some of the ghost hunting teams is when they go in. When I've interviewed people, they said they've gone into an investigation blind. They'd
I
rather
do.
not. They'd rather not know the history of.
I don't want to
Or
know anything.
yeah, because if you know what's already happened, you've already got an answer to a
That's
degree.
right. I've also been doing development for a number of years. So I used to say that a spirit would have to throw a brick at me before I knew it was there. I
Yeah.
can now communicate with them to some degree. So I've
Ooh,
actually learned to open up. Yeah, anybody can actually open up and learn to develop and actually do mediumship.
that's really
Anyone
cool.
can do that. Yeah, anyone can do it. You just got to open up. So there you go. New
Yeah.
challenge for you.
Yes.
If you want to.
I
Yeah.
had do you know Paranormal Jet Setters?
No.
Do you know those guys? They're from, oh, where are they from? Bromsgrove. I had
Right.
Paula and Jerome. I had those on my show, and Paula's done a lot of medium work. She was an interesting person to talk to.
Yeah.
So it always fascinates me. I'd love the only medium I ever didn't get on with. I'm going back about 10, 15 years now. I'm not very good with time. I thought it was last year the other day when someone
Oh,
asked me
wow.
what the date was.
Yeah.
But do you know the Station Hotel in Dudley?
Yeah, that was a good. Is it still there?
Mm-hmm.
It was a good
I
venue.
think
Yeah.
so. It was a couple of months ago because I went through Dudley.
Yeah.
Me and a friend went to a psychic night
Right.
there, and one of the worst ways. And I'm sorry, I want to get a little bit animated now.
Right.
I don't like people taking advantage of people.
No.
That is a massive no with me, and I can be outspoken, and I'm all for a laugh and a joke and everything like that, but don't pick on people. That's a no. And we
Yeah.
were at the site. We were at this psychic event, and the woman that was doing it was going around the hall, and she wasn't having much luck. The spirits weren't talking that night, and so on. And all of a sudden, she went to this elderly person that was sat behind me and a friend of mine, and she said to them, "Oh, I think I've got someone coming through that wants to talk to you." And he was like, "Okay," because they know what to look for in certain people, don't they? Where
Mm.
they know who may be, for want of a better word, vulnerable. And she was saying to him, "Oh, yeah, I've got an elderly person coming through.
Right.
Does that ring any bells? An elderly person?"
Oh no, I've never known an elderly person ever.
Yeah, they're hard to come by. And
Oh God.
I'm sort of looking round, and she goes, "Yeah," and she goes, "It's a man," and she goes, "As your father passed over," and the guy himself's got to be about 70. And I thought, well, I'd imagine so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And she goes, "Oh, he liked his old-fashioned things, didn't he? He liked his pies. He didn't like none of this new stuff." And the guy's in floods of tears. And I'm just
Oh,
looking at the person, thinking,
yeah.
you know, and you're trying to get someone's attention. You're like, don't do that.
Yeah.
That's
You want
To
something
me, that's rude.
specific. Like you get the mediums. Like I know a lot of mediums. If they come out with something really specific,
Yeah.
something what means something, or they come out with a phrase which, to them sounds silly, but to the
Hmm.
person receiving the message, it
Yeah.
means so much.
You can say, there's a couple of phrases you could say to me that from people that are passed on, which wouldn't mean anything to the general public, but I'd know it instantly.
Yeah, that's it.
And I think I know cold reading's part of it. And a few years ago, we went. Where were we? Oh, I know where it was. In Stourbridge, there used to be a pub. It's still there now. It's not a pub anymore. It's a steakhouse. There used to be a venue in Stourbridge called the Meeting Place. And I remember talking to someone in there the one day, and they claimed to be a medium. And they started asking me questions, trying, in a reading sense. And I thought, you're asking me for answers, aren't you meant to be telling me the
Yeah,
answers?
no, that's yeah.
I thought I'm not going to give you anything till you've told me something that I don't
No,
already, that I know you can't know.
that's right. Yeah, and
You know what I mean?
also you get it with Facebook now, don't you? Oh,
Mhm.
what name is it? Oh, I'll get back to you for
Mm.
reading. And
Yeah.
you just got
Yeah.
to be so careful. You really
Say again,
have.
sorry.
You just got to
Oh,
be so
oh,
careful. And
yeah. I think we've got to be. We've got to be so. When it comes to what we believe in, we've got to be so. Because we've got to be so careful. Because I think
yeah,
people can be so emotionally vulnerable that if you put that hook out there and reel them in, nah, man, that's the one thing I don't like about some. Obviously, there's loads of mediums, and
yeah,
the majority of mediums don't do that. But
yeah,
but at the end of the day, the ghost thing, be it mediumism, it's a trade, it's a line of work, it's an occupation, and in any occupation, I mean, I work in metal and things like that. Um, in any occupation, you get people who aren't very good at their job and pretend they
yeah,
are. And unfortunately, that crosses over into any. Is genre the right word?
Yeah, yeah. It is,
I think.
yeah. We get the
But yeah,
gist. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, you've got to come on the show. We've had some wonderful people. The other week, Hal Cook, thank you.
Thank you.
Um, we've had some wonderful guests. We had a celebrity guest the other week. Did you know that?
Wow. Who's that?
We had the one and only Nikki Diamond, who was Scorpio on Gladiators.
Yeah, I saw the photos. My God, she was so cool. Yeah.
Oh, she
Everyone
was.
likes Scorpio.
She was great. She was great. She was had a
Wow.
real. She's a good egg. She had a really good sense of humour,
That's
and because
brilliant.
she doesn't live local to the Black Country, so she appeared via a voice link.
Oh, cool.
But she was great. She was, and the fact she just agreed to do it was absolutely fantastic. So
Yeah.
I'm reaching out. Well, me and Todd are reaching out to more and more celebrities to try and get them on the show. I love wrestling, and I was trying to get I'd love to get a wrestler on the show.
Wow.
And we actually contacted. Did you ever watch wrestling? Probably not.
Back in the day, yeah. I used to watch it with
What?
Gran and Grandad. Yeah.
Do you remember the Mountie Jacques Rougeau?
No, not that.
He's,
Vaguely. See, I
well,
watched wrestling pre that.
old Big Daddy and Giant
Yeah,
Haystack.
all that jazz, yeah.
I've got to share this story. I've got to share this story. It's funny, and it's slightly it's supernatural. That's why I'm gonna say it. My friend's dad, when we were children, took us to Brawley. I'm going to say Brawley Hill Leisure Centre, but I might have the name wrong.
Right.
To watch the English wrestling,
Okay.
and the two people that I remember were there were Giant Haystacks
Oh my God.
and the masked man from Wolverhampton, Kendo
Oh,
Nagasaki.
wow.
And I remember when we were there, we'd read in the paper and so on how big Giant Haystacks was. So he was nearly like 7 foot tall, wasn't he? And he was about as wide as a mini.
God,
And
yeah.
I remember thinking, no. I remember thinking, no one's that big. And because when the people were coming into the ring, by the doors and by the entrance, always went quiet. So I purposely went and stood by the door for when not Big Daddy, when Giant Haystacks would come in, so I could just see so I could see for real how big he was. And I went and stood by this door about like a 40. How old was I? I don't know, 13, 14, something like that. I remember standing there, and as he came in, he sort of stepped under the door, and he just sort of looked down at me, and I'm there looking up, thinking, "Please don't eat me." But during the show, there was a tag team match, and it was Kendo Nagasaki versus like I forget what they were called, but they're like the English version of the Rockers, two like hip young wrestlers,
Oh, wow.
and he used his magic on them. Like he put them in a trance during the match. He's like waving his fingers around and everything like this, and he made these two tag team partners fight each other. And at the end of the match, the one of them got on the mic, and I can hear it clear as day. And they went, that man has powers not of this earth. That man is evil. He did something to us." And I'm like turning to my mate's dad, going, "Mr. Davis, is wrestling real?"
Yeah.
But
it was good though, like I watched
oh,
it as a
yeah.
kid. We didn't know. And
It's something.
got
It's
this
theatre.
John Smith. Did
Yes,
you
I
know
did.
Giant Haystacks? I didn't. Oh my God, I'm so good about Smethwick Baths. I'm so lucky
Yeah.
to have investigated there.
Because is it physically still there at the moment, or has it gone?
I'm not sure if it's gone. It's going. I know.
Well, I know it's certainly in the process of going. I know it's
I know
certainly in the
they don't do
process.
ghost hunts there anymore, which that's all finished
Again,
with.
sorry.
They've finished the ghost hunts there, apparently.
Oh, yes.
So that's all ended, which is a shame because I actually picked up the Craze when I went there.
You picked up who?
The Craze were there.
As in the twins?
Yeah, the twins were there.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So
Did they go to Crawley?
I actually got a sort of image through mediumship of what was going on, and it's like really horrific what I saw. So I kind of saw one dragging this guy in a like grey suit, like that sort of era, across the floor, and yeah, being physically
That's not very
violent.
nice.
And no, I got this. I saw it all in my head, which was I thought, I don't want to see this, you know. I sort of
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
like, I don't want to, and like, somebody came upstairs who's a good medium. Sometimes she watches this, and
Hmm.
she said she'd just spoken to the crows there, so she'd had him first, and then we sort of went in the room after, and yeah. So, oh Jesus, it's something like the thing is about if you ever go down the mediumship route, they always say make sure you want to do this
Yeah.
because then if you do get this really shocking image, you think, oh my, I don't want to see this, you know,
Well,
and
do
it
you think
can be a
from
bit
what
much.
you've just said, I think sometimes, I mean, obviously I'm not a medium, I've never done it, but from what it sounds like, it can take you to a place you really don't want to go
It
sometimes.
was unexpected, but I have seen something gross like that in real life.
Oh, I,
So
I, I,
I used to run
I
a
don't
pub.
mind. You used to, what, sorry?
I used to run a pub, so you kind of
A
see
pub.
things when you've got a pub.
Hmm.
Yeah, you sort of see things when you have a pub. Where,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
I can imagine.
bit of a
Yeah,
different world, you know. You see a different side of a town from what most people see of a town.
yeah. I bet there's. Here's a question for you. Have you, with Stourbridge, have you ever done a ghost hunt in Stourbridge?
No, is it the bonded warehouse? Lot going.
There is a bonded warehouse. The
Yeah, that's the
main
one
one,
I've heard of. Yeah,
people get ghostly experience. They used to underground boxing going on. Ah, I didn't
that
know that.
makes yeah.
Um, there is a pub in Stourbridge called the Talbot Hotel,
Oh yes,
and
I've heard of that one as well. Yeah,
they have a lot of supernatural experiences. What I would love to do, and I need to get him on the show actually. There's a really really old pub in Stourbridge, proper Edwardian type pub. The Mitre, it's a massive pub, and the guy who runs that mic, he's had it for years now. He's seen all kinds of things there.
how did
Did,
Talbot?
oh, fantastic!
Awesome. I think I know
I haven't
somebody
done-
else who did that. I'm sure
I
someone
think
posted that have
I
done the
think
Talbot.
Tracy and Andy. I think Tracy and Andy from Conquest have done the Talbot. I'm
Yeah,
sure they
they've done
have.
it recently. Yeah, definitely.
I know people have picked up all kinds of. I think if correct me if I might be wrong, but I think the supernatural presence in the Talbot is almost. I don't know if hostile's too strong a word, but certainly not friendly. But
Not
the
sure.
Mitre,
Have to go.
because what a lot of people don't know is you can Google it and see pictures of it, but it's not open to the public. Stourbridge is an old town, has a lot of underground stuff.
Right.
As in like a full, not to the degree Edinburgh does, but that'll give you an idea what I mean.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
has a lot of underground stuff, and this big pub, the Mitre, their cellar has how do I describe it? In the brickwork, you can still see archways,
Oh,
which
okay.
would have led to more tunnels under the town.
Awesome.
And I'd love to go because they did. I know there are photos of the and they said Undercity. Then it's a town, not a city. They did take some photos, and there was talk of opening the thing up for ghost hunts and things like that. But
Fascinating.
whether it was deemed structurally unsound, I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
I know they decided not to do it,
I
and they
have
were
that
very secret.
in Derby. They've got a lot of tunnels under the city of Derby.
Mhm.
And at one stage, we used to go down there. I've never actually really been down there, apart from a pub's got a way down, but the council just shut it all off because,
Yeah.
because of health and safety and everything.
Well, and unfortunately, you can't always trust people not to mess around.
Well, that's right, isn't it? That's the problem. So,
they,
yeah.
they were very secretive about it in Stourbridge because it's not publicly known. I don't know if you could Google it, you could find it. I've never
Yeah.
actually looked for it, but it's not common knowledge where the entrance is. It's known there is an entrance, but
Yeah.
it's not made. It's not common knowledge. I don't know where it is. One thing I will say though, because you asked me at the start of the show what experiences I had, and I've actually remembered something. Am I allowed to talk about UFOs on here?
Definitely, yeah. We cover anything
Fantastic.
to do with paranormal. There's a great guy in the US who I've spoken to twice. He knows so much and has written books with witnesses, first hand
Hmm.
accounts and things like that. But yeah,
Have Have
fascinating.
you ever heard of the Dudley Dorito?
Vaguely, I
Me
have.
and Well,
Sounds
a
like a
friend of
crisp.
mine. It is a Dorito. It's a crisp, a very nice crisp. Sorry, I nearly made a joke then.
You can
I've got to
do.
tell you this. Just to make it, yes, aliens. I have to say, put it into context. The guy who plays bass in my band, I always wind him up by saying it is, and I do it in a descriptive term because my bass player is from LA originally.
Oh wow. Oh,
School,
he's gone. I'll be back in a
there's a
minute. Hello, you're back. You just disappeared.
I saw it go black for a second. There's a video of him as a younger man doing the spelling bee at his school, and someone must have messed the questions up or something like that. And they give them really difficult words to spell. They must have messed up the words because the question he was suddenly asked was the word. Sorry, the word he was suddenly told to spell was banana. There's a delicious fruit and a pudding. And when anyone mentions food around him, I always say that. And I did it the other week when he had a bag of Doritos. I just basically said it in that voice. I digress. I do that a lot. But me and a friend, I used to be in a punk band called Strontium, and we used to rehearse in Wolverhampton. I'm going back 20 years, and we were coming back from Wolverhampton via Dudley, and we got to Briley Hill Fire Station. And I looked up and I just saw it. And I don't drive, and I was in the passenger seat. And I looked up and I just saw this triangular, illuminated shape in the sky. And what caught my attention, it was stationary, but it wasn't a helicopter because like helicopters aren't triangle. And it was like, are you a Star Wars fan I mentioned earlier?
Yeah.
Do you know the Star Destroyer at the start of A New Hope, the big Star Destroyer? It was like looking up and seeing something like that.
Wow.
And I just looked up and I was like, what's that? And I knocked him because he's a bit of a, he's not the sharpest in the box. I was like, look up. And he saw it. He was like, whoa, bloody hell, what's that in? Ooh.
Wow.
And we were like, what is it? We parked the car and we were looking at it. And we thought, man, what have we seen? And a good 10 years later, I was talking to a friend of mine and we're talking about UFOs and stuff. And I said, yeah, me and PK saw something driving through Dudley. And I said, oh, it was like and I only said it was like a triangle shape. And they were like, you've seen the Dudley Dorito? And I was like, you what? And they were like, yeah, loads of people have seen it. It's been seen. And it's weird. When it's another supernatural connection, a loose supernatural connection. We did a haunted, I say haunted in connotations, a photo shoot for my current band over Witchbury Hill by Hagley Monuments.
Right.
And we had our very own woman in black come over to be part of the photo shoot, Leela. And her brother, because she's from Cosley, which is not far from Wolverhampton, her brother picked up the Dudley Dorito on his camera phone.
Oh, wow.
Like, over their street. And I thought, small world. I thought how cool that was.
Yeah, it's fascinating. When other people have seen it and, for it to be a known thing as well, it's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I just wish it had happened to me more. I've heard these stories over the years. I was just thinking of another one.
UFN.
So it was a UFN, unidentified flying nacho. I used to work at a place in Stourbridge called Stuart Crystal, the glass place, really old place, really, really, and there was loads of stories there.
Wow.
Because, and when my mom actually worked there when she was having me all those years ago, and she said there was an old mill there and no one would go there even in the day, because there were rumours that had been used for gibbet purposes many years ago. Is it true? I don't know. But it certainly had the atmosphere of not going up there. But when I was there, me and another guy on the shift, we went down to the basement because that was meant to be haunted. Mm-hmm. And we didn't see anything, but tons and tons of people there had seen things. And I remember the one shift I was on, and I remember him saying, why doesn't this happen to me? One of the electricians, and you respected it because he was very much a no-nonsense man. Like, he was a manly man.
Right,
the sort of man that eats Ginsters and puts shelves up and stuff like that. And he'd been up to what my mom would have referred to as the old mill, but when I was there, it was just storage.
Okay.
He'd been up there doing some electrician stuff, as they do. Yeah. And he said as he was working, he could feel someone breathing at the back of his neck.
Oh, wow.
And he knew no one was up there with him because the
Yeah.
only way to get to this place, do you know those old service lifts they have in places with the old concertina doors?
Oh, God. Yeah, I used to mess in one of them, yeah.
Yeah.
I used to open the door.
Yes.
Get stuck,
But
yeah.
that was the only way to get up to this area of the factory. And the
Wow.
lift was and it was kept locked so people couldn't mess around in it. So he'd unlocked it, gone up there, so he knew he was the only person up there.
Wow.
And it says as he's working on this thing, he can just feel someone breathing behind him.
Wow.
And he like did the job as quick as he could. Suddenly, he's like, "Nah, I've had enough of this," because this was on the night shift. And he literally got up and went. Nah. And it says as he was walking to, and this is already another story. I will come to another story in a minute. As he's walking back to the lift, he can hear footsteps like clip clopping behind him on the tiled floor. And he stops, and the footsteps stop. So he starts to speed up, and he just hears them get a bit more rapid behind him. And so he said he got in the lift, shut the door, and without even looking round, he got in the lift, shut the door behind him, and pressed the button without looking behind him to go down. He said if something was there, which it was the old, what's that story? The one when the man's tried to escape from Hades, and they tell him, "Don't look behind you."
Right,
He
yeah.
says, something's following you, and providing you don't turn round, you'll be okay. Don't look at it. And he said he had that inkling almost that he said I'll be all right as long as I don't look at it. But another story. I remember. We're coming to the end of the show, and I'm remembering all the stories I've been told now. But I used to work at a carpet factory, as I've mentioned earlier. And the one summer we had a real surge. Everyone wanted carpets. We had like a real surge of work and stuff like that. And they started a night shift there, which they didn't normally have, to keep the looms going throughout the night.
Yeah.
And there was two lads working on it, and they said that, when they stopped the machine, when there was a fault with it, behind the back of this big 12-foot loom, they heard footsteps, and the way they described them was, in their words, pronounced footsteps.
Right, okay.
You know, and they were like, "Go and have a look," and they were like, the other one was like, "Nah, I ain't going to look." But because it was a weird, it was a weird building that was, because it was an amalgamation of buildings. It was one of those ones that had started as something, and then like two buildings had become one, and they'd sort of built up. I could listen. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I do ramble. I do ramble, but thank you very much for saying that.
I'm loving these stories. I really am.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for asking me to come on. It's been good fun. It's been good fun.
Oh, it's been great to speak to you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's really kind of you. One more story I will say about the carpet place, though, and again, it didn't happen to me. You know, when it used to just suddenly snow out the blue, and we'd get really heavy snow. We were working there. It was the middle of the week. I remember that vividly. And all of a sudden, when we know it's going to have sky, because when it's going to have sky, when we're going to have snow, because the sky will go like a dark yellow colour.
Yeah.
It went like that, and all of a sudden it's coming out of nowhere. And of course, I lived in Stourbridge, and I was like, "Well, I'm going to try and get back." And a few people that lived around the corner were like, "Well, we can walk back," and stuff like that. But the one guy that worked there, he was from Kidderminster, and he was like, "I'm not driving rural roads in heavy snowfall."
Yeah.
He says, at the end of the day, there's heaters, there's a fridge, there's a kettle, there's food. I'm just going to stay here.
Yeah.
It's all right, I just heard something. He says, I'll stay here and, just see out the night. So sure enough, he does. He pulls some carpet over himself to make a bed with and stuff like that. And we come in the next day. You know when it comes out of nowhere, but by the next day it's gone. We come in the next day. We're like, "Oh, how you doing, Aid? How'd you get on? Did you have a good night?" And he's like, "No, not at all." And we're like, "What's the matter?" And he's like, "I've never been so scared in my whole life." He'd lay there in the pitch darkness, and he said the amount of things that he caught out. Because here's a question for you, and this is a bit of a theory I've heard, and I've mentioned this on my show a few times. You know that old thing when we catch something out the corner of our eye, then when we look, it's not there. Some people say that always is something. Do you believe there's any truth in that?
I think it could be something. I saw something the other day, actually. when I mentioned the investigation, I don't tend to physically see. I see things in my mind's eye, and I
Hmm.
just caught something. I just moved my head and I saw something, and I'm adamant I actually saw something.
Do you have
And
any idea what it was, or couldn't you discern a
it was a
shape?
male
Or
person. It was a male.
it was a
It was a
man?
man, but yeah, it was that quick. You look, by the time it registers, you've seen it. Because
Hmm.
I just glimpsed over and I was looking back, and by the time you register, it's gone. You know what I mean? It was that quick. But for me to realise it was something, because you look to your side all the time, you don't see anything.
Hmm.
And I saw something, and yeah. And I think somebody had a dowsing rod and they were picking up something that end anyway. And then later on, somebody actually saw somebody who, like, peeking his head in
So
a
what,
different.
sorry?
It was just like standing behind the door and like peeking his head in. Some people can
Oh,
see.
peeking. I thought
Yeah,
you said picking his head. I thought, what's that?
no, just
Right.
like you could just like he's like having a little nose in, like looking in the doorway. Like they I think can see anywhere. I can't generally, but I did see something, which yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool.
That, that's a scary thing with the supernatural. It's about people peeking their heads in.
Yeah.
I used to work with a guy, and when I thought about the story afterwards, I thought that is pretty creepy because the flat he lived in. I want to get the name of it wrong now. Don't know if any of the listeners know Halesoe very well, but there's some blocks of flats by the bus station. I can't remember what they're called.
Right.
But he used to live in one of those. And he said he was only there a short time, and he kept experiencing little things. And said it said it come to a boil the one night when he was there, and he was lying in bed, and he kept hearing his I want to say a door handle, an internal door, not like the
Oh gosh.
not the what do you call it, not a door that someone walking down the corridor of the flats could mess
Yeah.
with. Because at the end of the day, if you're living in a block of flats and
Ah,
suddenly
here we go by
someone,
the car park.
yes, by the car park, right opposite the car park, um, if someone messes with the door handle, that's maybe someone's on the wrong floor. You know what I mean? Maybe
Yeah.
someone's pressed 4 instead of 3 on the lift or something like that, and they think they're at their front door, and all of a sudden they know, oh, I'm not. Oh, damn, or something like that. But this was the internal door. Like you'd have had to have come through the front door, and well, it was basically his bedroom door. And he said he used to hear the doorknob rattling at night. And he said the one night he was in bed, and he swears that as he looked up for a split second, he saw a face sort of. I'm trying to do the profile either side of me on the borders. He sort
Yeah.
of saw a face sort of. I'm doing it. I'm going the wrong way. Hang on. He saw like a face, a face peering
Wow.
round the door at him. And I'm like, why doesn't this stuff ever happen to me? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? He was terrified by it. And I don't begrudge him for being terrified by it. If if you're in bed and suddenly there's a strange face looking at you, that's not a good thing.
No, I've had something tapping on my bed before, which was that freaked me out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd got an issue. I'd been somewhere and I think something followed me. So I went to bed and I've got something called an EDI. So it's actually got a sensor on the bottom so that if the bed's tapped, for instance, you get an orange light. If it's tapped a lot,
Right.
you get more, sensor. And yeah, it's like the sensor kept going off. It's like, okay.
Do
So
you
I
have that
just got
there
in bed
for
and,
supernatural reasons?
hey?
Do you have that sensor there for supernatural reasons?
No,
Like,
I'd got an issue that particular time.
right.
Went and picked up a spirit from somewhere and it got really heavy. Yeah, well, no, it turned up actually. I was at drama and it suddenly appeared with me. I can't remember if I'd just been somewhere a week before or something, and yeah, it's a weird story. But a while ago, yeah.
That's some of the scariest stories you hear when people go out on an investigation or they go somewhere, and sometimes something's following them home, don't they?
I've had that. Yeah, I've got a horrible story about that. Yeah.
Or something
Um,
followed you home?
yeah, well, no. Well, yeah, I investigated Haunted Museum in Nottingham. There's a building next door to it, which was called the Sweet Shop. So it's
Hmm.
the old cinema, which was then, and they've got the shop next door, but it's right near the old Nottingham Asylum, to call it something. And I picked up something the minute I walked in, a certain character. So then when we left, and I just think he attached himself to me. So then I went camping the next day to Northumberland. So I drove, packed my tent up, got caught in
Hmm.
Storm E&F in a tent. Luckily it was a steel frame one, but the minute I put the tent up, it was leaking. But I never felt so down in my life. I was so,
Oh,
to be on holiday, but I know it was bad conditions, but I'm used to camping in all weathers. But I felt so down and miserable and like, oh my gosh, it's hard to, it's horrible. But yeah,
do you think sometimes the emotion? I don't know if emotion's the right word. Do you think I'm going to say emotion? 'Cause that makes sense. Sometimes the emotion of the spirit themselves can get attached to us. I
mm,
mean, there seems like an awful lot of sadness attached to some of it, which is tragic.
yeah,
And by all means, you got to feel sorry for them. But as much as you feel sorry for them, you don't want them following you home. You know what I mean?
God, no, no.
I mean,
It was weird. It's because I actually picked up on it the minute I walked in the building. I picked up on him
Mhm.
just like that. And then throughout the night, his story came through, not just to me, to other people, and it's real
Yes.
gruesome story as well. And it seemed really far fetched, but the thing is, the things you find out when you do this,
Yeah.
um,
And
you, and you do think it's far fetched, but actually, in those days, I mentioned it to my friend, and she says, "Yeah, that probably happened." And then there's something connected to that building, an imagery I got with that building, and it
mhm.
was something what happened at Newsham Park, which is asylum in Liverpool. So yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I think sometimes when they do attach themselves, I might be wrong. This is just my own opinion. I think sometimes when they do attach themselves to people, is it through sadness? Is it through? Are they clinging for that bit more life? As I say, you can't not feel sorry for these souls, but you don't want them coming home with you. I mean, the best way I
Some
can
are
put it, I
gruesome,
feel.
though. This one was gruesome. He was.
Oh right.
He was
I mean,
nasty.
the best way I could think of it though is that I feel really sorry for polar bears, but I don't want one in my house. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I, I think on an overhaul, it is. Well, we know it is a great subject. It's a fascinating subject,
It is.
and I think there's so much to learn in it. I've been doing this show since August, and I've met some fantastic people already, and I can't wait to see what people I meet next. Because I haven't had a bad guest. I haven't. Everyone that's come in's been great. They really, really have.
You know what?
I've had it.
We are running to a close now.
Right.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we've got the Dark Mirror show. Wayne's watching, or he may have gone now. He's doing the show at 9:30 on the Things Network. Okay.
Right.
But you had a story which you mentioned,
I
and
did. Oh,
I think that is a perfect ending.
okay. I will tell it. I will tell it.
It has to be done.
Um, I've set the context first. When I did the radio show, I always give people different ways to contact me. You can either contact the show and the station through the group on Facebook, which is Ghost Stories with Ian Hideous on Facebook. You can email me. You can WhatsApp me. And I haven't actually got my number. I was going to read my number out, and I haven't actually. It's on my phone, which I'm actually using to do this, and I can't say my own number off the top of my head. But
Right.
if you listen to the show on demand, I always read it out every week,
All
so you
right,
can always.
that's fine then.
If any of you wonderful people that have been kind enough to listen to this, and you haven't met me, you haven't been on my show before, check out Ghost Stories with Ian Hideous, the Ghost Stories show on Black Country Extra on demand, and I always give people ways to contact me. So I have people ring me, I have people email me, and if I get like as I mentioned before, when I had paralytic activities come on, they were I hadn't met them yet, but they were already. I knew they were an organised group. They'd done things. They'd gone on hunts. They had like social media pages and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll have a person, just like a member of the public, message me or contact me wanting to come on, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. People, you don't have to be in a ghost hunting group to come on my show. Anyone can come on. But what I will say to people, give me an idea what you're going to tell me, because I've got to talk to you for an hour. So give me an idea what you're going to tell me. I'll pretend I'm hearing it for the first time on the show, but I need to have a rough idea what I'm going to hear from you. And the one guy, he said to me, well, I've got a ghost story for you, Ian. I said, great stuff, let me hear it. And he goes, oh, I feel a bit silly. I said, don't feel silly. I said, never worries me feeling silly, sounding silly. And he said, okay. And he says, well, years ago, when I first lived on my own, I had this blue cup in my house. And I said, okay. And he goes, it's just one of them cups, tea tasted better out of it. He says it had a chip out of it, but I could never bring myself to throw it away or anything like that. And I said, okay. I thought, thinking in your head, where's this going? And he goes, and one day, sure enough, the cup broke. And I said, okay. And he goes, I didn't think anything of it. I went to my mum's house a few weeks later. And I said to her, Mum, can I make myself a drink? She's like, oh, help yourself. And he goes, I opened the cupboard door, Ian, and you'll never guess. I said, I'll never guess. And he goes, it was there, the blue cup. And I said, and was the chip still in it? And he goes, no, that had gone. Bless him.
I know. So what can you say to that? Oh God, it's so funny, isn't it?
But you can't not look. If you listen to that now, bless you, the individual didn't end up coming on the show because I didn't know if the story. I didn't know if the story was a joke or not. But the guy was so serious when he told it me. He probably
you could, and that's the thing as well with this field. You can get people who just come out with something, and it is a joke. Yeah. Because they can take the pee out of you, and actually, if you experience things,
when you're waiting for a punchline, and you're thinking, is there a joke coming? And you're thinking, no, he's being serious, isn't he? You can't not love the guy. God bless him. But
no. That's brilliant. Yeah, but I want to thank you so much. I want to thank everyone who's commented. But it's been absolutely awesome. It really has.
Big thank you for asking me to come on the show, and big thank you out there for anyone that's commented and watched me ramble for an hour and a half. I hope I've done all right, because I was a bit.
I know, you've been absolutely awesome. I'm nearly crying.
Oh, thank you.
It's just too funny.
Thank you.
Stories are fantastic. Like how good.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
splendid. I think how nosy
thank
area.
you. Thank you, Hal. Thank you, Kelly.
Well,
Kelly, come on. If you're local to the West Midlands, come on my show.
I think Kelly's in the US.
Oh, so, that's a bit far.
So it's a bit of a long way to travel.
I do have a Facebook page, Kelly. It's Ghost Stories of the Inhidious, if you want to check it out. And you can find the links to all the episodes of the shows I've already done and things like that. Thank you all so much. Thank you for having me on the show. And I've got to return the favour and have you on my show. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been fantastic.
It's been a pleasure.
But thanks, everyone. Take care. Look after yourselves. And goodbye.
Bye, Liz.
Bye.